The cameras flashed, the crowd froze, and just like that, Hollywood had a new obsession.
Oh, it was instant. You could feel the whole room shift.
Completely. I mean, imagine the scene, right? It's the glitz of the Grammys.
Yep.
Followed immediately by Madonna's ultra-exclusive Oscars after party. And moving through this crowd is a couple that just immediately commands the room's attention.
Because the visual is just so striking.
Exactly. She is older than his son, and Anthony Kiedis, well, he doesn't care.
Not even a little bit.
Welcome to Starscope Report. We uncover Hollywood drama, music industry shakeups, and, viral influencer scandals.
From red carpet surprises to social media controversies, we dive deep into the stories behind the fame.
And for today's deep dive, we have a massive one. We are unpacking the explosive intersection of 1980s rock star excess and, 2020's influencer accountability.
It is such a wild collision of eras.
It really is. So we're pulling from a pretty intense stack of sources today. We've got a highly controversial anonymous Vogue essay.
Right, which started this whole thing.
Exactly. Plus deep dive music journalism from Stereogum and Consequence, a really intimate mental health interview from Dazed, and of course, some incredibly vocal Reddit sleuths pulling up legal history.
Those Reddit sleuths do not mess around.
No, they don't. Okay, let's unpack this. Because, to understand how we got here, we have to start quietly.
Yeah, with an essay that really just lit a match under the whole internet.
Right. So this whole thing kicked off with a 30-year-old sex educator, podcaster, and writer named Eileen Kelly. She was essentially trying to intellectualize her romance in the pages of Vogue.
Which is quite the platform to use.
Oh, for sure. In April, she published a column titled, quite literally, "My Boyfriend is Double My Age."
Subtle.
Very. And in it, she details her relationship with a man she completely refuses to name, but she does confirm he's in his 60s.
So we're looking at a 33-year age gap. She's 30 and he's 63.
Exactly. And she paints this very specific, almost cinematic picture of how they met.
Yeah, she describes this meet-cute at a mutual friend's birthday party. They strike up a conversation, bond over a shared connection to Hawaii, where he happens to own a house, by the way.
Naturally.
And she writes about this feeling of an, quote, invisible string connecting them, which is fascinating because she explicitly notes that the massive age gap didn't even register at first.
Wait, really? She claimed a 30-plus year gap didn't register?
That's what she wrote.
I mean, that is quite a statement to make. But what really caught the internet's attention was how fiercely she defended the dynamic.
Oh, she went on the offensive.
She basically argues that the stereotypes surrounding age gap relationships are lazy. Like, she writes that an older man simply had more time to get his shit together.
Right, and she says he's genuinely excited to be with her, not just biding his time. She even said he is fully aware he is one lucky bastard.
Which is definitely a flex. She's directly challenging that societal reflex we all have.
Totally. She points out that older men in these dynamics are instantly labeled creepy or gross.
Yeah, while the younger women are reduced to having daddy issues or just being labeled gold diggers.
She was demanding a much more nuanced read of the situation. And to her credit, she doesn't shy away from the negative impact it's having on her personal life.
Right, she actually admits to losing friends over this relationship.
Yeah, she talks about a friend she FaceTimed to share the news with, who just looked visibly disappointed.
Like Eileen had violated some sort of shared generational understanding.
Exactly. Plus, she mentions the public humiliation of being mistaken for his daughter.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which she admits is, quote, awkward every time.
I bet. But, I am really struggling with her logic on the power imbalance here.
How so?
Well, her core defense is basically financial and professional independence. She says she has her own money, her own career, her own home.
Right, she writes that she's not at risk of losing everything if they break up.
But having her own apartment doesn't suddenly erase 3 decades of a power imbalance. It feels like she's saying she can tame a lion just because she bought her own cage, Does financial independence really erase that dynamic?
That is the exact question Reddit was asking. She's using 2024 empowerment language to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
She's applying this very modern framework of independence to a dynamic that is fundamentally rooted in an old-school imbalance.
Right. Power isn't just about who pays the rent. It's about emotional leverage, life experience.
For sure. Does having your own bank account protect you from decades of ingrained behavioral patterns or industry influence?
And she intentionally left his name out of the essay, probably hoping people would just debate the philosophy of age gaps in a vacuum.
But you can't do that.
No. If there's one thing you cannot do in the 2020s, it's present a mystery to the internet.
Never ends well.
No, and that's not even the wildest part. Later in this deep dive, we'll talk about the shocking twist nobody saw coming when the online sleuths went to work. What they dug up completely shifted the narrative.
It really did.
If you're loving these Hollywood twists, make sure you're subscribed. We've got even crazier stories ahead.
So it didn't take long for the veil to drop on this mystery man.
Oh, not at all. The unnamed boyfriend with the Hawaiian home was very quickly identified as Red Hot Chili Peppers frontman Anthony Kiedis.
Yep. As you mentioned at the top of the show, they've been photographed together at major industry events.
The Grammys, the Oscars.
Exactly. The anonymity of the Vogue piece just evaporated overnight.
And the second his name was attached to the essay, the internet exploded.
Because Anthony Kiedis doesn't just have a casual history of dating younger women.
No, he has a track record that music journalists have been documenting for decades.
Right. The music publications Stereogum and Consequence both laid out the timeline, and it is staggering when you look at it all at once.
So staggering. Let's look at the facts they presented. When Kiedis was 24, he famously dated movie star Ione Skye.
Do you know how old she was?
She was 16 at the time.
Wow.
Yeah. Fast forward a few decades. In his early 50s, he dated model Helena Vestergaard. Reports indicate she was just 19 when they got together.
And their breakup actually inspired much of the Red Hot Chili Peppers' 2016 album, The Getaway.
Right. Then there was model Heather Christie. He dated her in his 40s when she was in her 20s, and they share a son together.
Which means Eileen is literally older than his own kid.
Wrap your head around that.
It's a lot.
It is. And this brings us to the absolute uproar on Reddit, specifically the RNY's influencer snark community. They latched onto a very specific line from Eileen's Vogue essay.
Oh, I know the line.
She wrote, "If I were 18 or even 21, the scales would be weighted far differently."
The irony there is just blinding.
Wait, I just have to pause on that. She actually wrote that if she were 18, things would be different.
Yeah.
How did the Vogue editors not flag that, knowing who he is? Reddit must have had an absolute field day with that single sentence.
Oh, they tore it apart. The community immediately pointed out the glaring omission. She completely glossed over the fact that her boyfriend has famously dated 19-year-olds and younger.
Right.
Instead of just saying the backlash was brutal, let's look at what the users actually said.
Yeah.
They were calling her a pick-me girl. They accused her of therapy washing a creep and tap dancing for the patriarchy.
Wow. Therapy washing. That's intense.
Right. They felt that by providing this sanitized, intellectualized defense of their relationship, she was bending over backward to intellectualize a cliche.
Giving him a few pass.
Exactly.
And honestly, the visuals really didn't help. Reddit users pointed out that in one of the photos accompanying the discourse, Kiedis bore a pretty disturbing resemblance to Jeffrey Epstein.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
You look at the comments and people are just viscerally repulsed. The internet was essentially saying, you can use all the therapy speak you want, Eileen, but we know exactly who this man is.
Right. And what's fascinating here is the mechanics of the outrage.
What do you mean?
Well, the public isn't just reacting to a 63-year-old dating a 30-year-old. They're reacting to the hypocrisy.
Ah, right.
You have a highly educated, sex-positive feminist podcaster writing in Vogue, one of the most prestigious publications in the world, essentially providing a PR shield for a man whose dating history is the exact opposite of the feminist ideals she usually champions.
It highlights a massive cultural shift, doesn't it?
Totally. 30 years ago, a rock star dating a young model was just considered, rock and roll.
Right, it was par for the course.
But today,
yeah.
it is deeply analyzed through the lens of grooming, power dynamics, and patriarchy.
But if you think his dating history from his 40s and 50s is shocking, stay tuned.
Oh, boy.
Because you won't believe what he openly admitted to doing in his 20s and why the police never knocked on his door.
Stay tuned and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next.
So we have to talk about his 2004 memoir, Scar Tissue.
We really do. This is where the story shifts from, questionable dating patterns to actual legal and moral boundaries.
Exactly. In a best-selling book published by a major publishing house, Kiedis openly admitted to having sex with a 14-year-old girl.
And he was 23 at the time.
He didn't just admit to it, he immortalized it. The encounter inspired the 1985 Red Hot Chili Peppers song, Catholic Schoolgirls Rule.
Just wild that it's all out in the open.
All right. So the big question that another Reddit community, RN Stupid Questions, started dissecting, and frankly the question you have to ask when you hear this is, if someone writes a confession like that in a best-selling book, how are they not in prison?
It's a very valid question. And the legal analysis synthesized by that community provides a pretty sobering look at how the justice system actually works versus how we think it works.
Break it down for us.
First and foremost, there's the statute of limitations. This incident took place in the 1980s in Louisiana.
Okay.
By the time Scar Tissue hit bookstores in 2004, nearly 2 decades later, the statute of limitations for felonies in that state, which was a maximum of 6 years, had long expired.
Wow. But even beyond the statute of limitations, I think a lot of people wonder this about rock memoirs in general. Like, if you put it in print, isn't that a confession? Can't the police just use the book as evidence?
That's where the legal mechanics get really interesting. A memoir isn't sworn testimony. It's not an affidavit.
Right.
For a district attorney to actually bring charges, they can't just wave a book at a judge and say, look, he wrote it here.
They need more than that.
They need a named, cooperative victim. They need specific dates, exact locations, and clear jurisdiction to prove a crime beyond a reasonable doubt.
That makes sense, legally.
Right. And Kiedis' lawyers could simply argue that the passage was exaggerated to sell copies, that it was a, fictionalized persona created for entertainment value.
And legally, that defense works.
It works. Without a victim willing to testify, the text of a book is essentially useless in a courtroom.
Unbelievable. And then there's the cultural context, which the Reddit community also explored. We aren't excusing it by any means, but we have to understand the era.
Yeah, the 1980s were a different world.
In the 1980s, rock groupie culture was rampant, and it frequently involved underage girls lying about their ages to get backstage. Society, law enforcement, and the music industry largely turned a blind eye to it. It was considered an open secret of the job.
Which is horrifying, but historically accurate.
So what does this all mean? Because the disconnect here is giving me whiplash.
I don't blame you.
You have Anthony Kiedis, a man who has essentially navigated his entire life under the protective immunity of 1980s rock star rules. He confessed to statutory rape in a book and suffered 0 career consequences.
0.
And right next to him, you have Eileen Kelly, trying to validate their current relationship using the very specific sanitized therapy speak of the 2020s.
It's like watching 2 different timelines trying to speak the same language.
Exactly. It's a clash of paradigms. Kiedis represents an era where bad behavior was currency.
And Kelly represents an era where behavior must be endlessly processed, justified, and validated online.
Right. But just when you think you have Eileen Kelly figured out, maybe you're writing her off as a naive victim or a clout chaser blinded by fame, we have to flip the script.
We really do, because she is not easily categorized.
No. Because the more you dig into her background, the more complicated this gets. She is not just some random influencer who happened to catch a rock star's eye. Let's look at her resume. She has literally been dubbed the millennial Dr. Ruth.
Yeah, her background is super impressive. She built an empire from the ground up, starting on Tumblr in high school with a blog called Birds and Bees.
Oh, I remember that era of Tumblr.
Right. And she grew that into a massively successful platform called Killer and the Sweet Thing, managing a whole staff of writers.
Wow.
She published a book in 2018 called Pull Out, Educating Millennials on Safe Sex. And she hosts a highly successful podcast called Going Mental.
So she is self-made, highly educated in her field, and financially independent. Which brings us to the incredibly revealing interview she did with Dazed magazine. Eileen Kelly is a fierce advocate for mental health, and she isn't just an observer. She has been deep in the trenches with her own struggles.
Yeah, she's been very open about it.
Before rebranding her podcast to Going Mental, she suffered a severe mental health crisis. She actually spent 5 months in an inpatient women's ward at McLean Hospital.
McLean is very well known.
Oh.
Famous from Interrupted, actually.
Right. And during her time there, and the subsequent years, she engaged in what she called a wild goose chase to get an accurate diagnosis.
Because doctors are often incredibly hesitant to put this specific diagnosis on a chart, right? Because of the intense stigma associated with it.
Exactly. But she was eventually diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, or BPD.
Right. And she didn't just have, mild symptoms.
No, not at all. According to the Dazed piece, at the time of her admission, she exhibited 9 out of the 9 diagnostic criteria for BPD.
Which is
We're talking about an intense fear of abandonment, extreme emotional swings, chronic feelings of emptiness.
And crucially for this story, a history of unstable relationships.
Yes.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it forces us to completely reevaluate her Vogue essay.
How so?
Well, the internet was so quick to call her a pick-me girl. But when you look at the mechanics of BPD, that invisible string she described feeling when she met Kiedis takes on a totally different meaning.
Right, because with BPD, that invisible string isn't necessarily romance.
Exactly.
I've read about this. It's often a psychological mechanism called repetition compulsion, isn't it?
You hit the nail on the head.
It's the brain's way of seeking out familiar, unstable dynamics because the chaos actually feels like home.
Repetition compulsion is a massive factor here. People with BPD often experience emotions so intensely that stable, safe relationships can feel boring or even anxiety-inducing.
Because they were just waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Exactly. So they subconsciously gravitate toward intense, high-stakes dynamics. When you realize that the author of this Vogue essay is someone who lives with a disorder characterized by relational instability, does that change how we read her defense of a man with Kiedis' history?
It's the ultimate psychological puzzle.
Yeah.
It's fascinating because she has all the vocabulary to deconstruct a toxic relationship. She's literally built a career on it.
Right.
But the internet is screaming that she's using that exact same vocabulary to build a protective wall around one.
Yeah, that's the tragedy of it.
She wrote in Vogue that she isn't at risk of losing everything if they break up, focusing purely on her finances. But when you factor in a BPD diagnosis where the fear of abandonment isn't just an insecurity, but something that can be physically painful, the emotional stakes of dating someone who historically discards women in their 20s are astronomical.
It adds a layer of profound vulnerability to a woman who, on paper, projects absolute control and independence.
It really does.
It makes the public backlash she received feel a bit more tragic, honestly. The internet demanded she answer for his past, ripping apart her feminist credentials, while she was actively navigating a mental health landscape that makes relationships incredibly difficult to begin with.
It's so messy.
On one hand, her background means she goes into this with her eyes wide open. On the other hand, a critic could ask, is her eloquent defense of a 63-year-old rock god just a highly intellectualized manifestation of her diagnosis?
It's a lot to process. We've gone on quite the journey today.
We really have.
We started with a glossy, highly curated essay in Vogue about the intellectual merits of dating an older man.
Then we plunged into the dark, consequence-free reality of 1980s rock memoirs and underage groupies.
We watched Reddit sleuths act as a modern-day moral tribunal, pulling up legal statutes from Louisiana.
And finally, we ended up looking closely at the raw, unfiltered reality of borderline personality disorder.
It's a perfect case study of modern celebrity. Nothing exists in a vacuum anymore.
Nope. A single essay in a fashion magazine acts as a tripwire, detonating decades of buried history and sparking debates about everything from the statute of limitations to the ethics of psychiatric diagnoses.
So we turn this over to you, the listener. You have the stack of evidence. You have the context of the 80s, the intricate legal realities that protect memoirs, the internet's visceral outrage, and Eileen's own mental health journey.
When a highly educated, self-made modern feminist dates a relic of 1980s rock star excess, who is really changing who?
Is Eileen bringing Anthony Kiedis into the modern era of accountability? Or is Kiedis pulling Eileen into his historical pattern of imbalance?
And that leaves us with one final, provocative thought to chew on.
Let's hear it.
We spend all of our time online demanding accountability from modern influencers. One wrong tweet, one poorly phrased essay, and a career is put on the chopping block.
So true.
But legacy rock stars, they seem to exist in a permanent, bulletproof state of immunity. Moving forward, will the internet eventually force a true reckoning for the rock gods of the 80s? Or will public outrage only ever have the teeth to punish the young women who choose to stand next to them?
That adds the question. The cameras are still flashing, the crowd is still frozen, and Hollywood is still obsessed trying to figure out who is really pulling the invisible string. You've been listening to Starscope Report, where Jordan and Jamie uncover the stories shaping Hollywood, music, and pop culture. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that keep the stars shining.